Welcome to the Work Wonders podcast, where we simplify HR for small business. I'm Angela.
And I'm Susan. Let's dive into today's episode and see what you've been wondering about.
In today's episode, we're going to discuss onboarding. It's all about how to start your new employees off on the right foot right from the beginning. We're going to be talking about 4 different stages. Firstly, the pre-boarding, which is all about before they actually begin on their first day. Then, of course, their first day, their first month, and right up until their first 3 months. So let's get started. This is the Work Wonders podcast.
Hi, Angela.
Hi, Susan.
Now, we know at the moment it's not that easy to recruit new employees.
No, it's not.
And we're hearing from our clients that finding the right people takes a lot of effort. Yeah. So one of the things that you can do to hang on to them is to have a proper onboarding process.
Yeah.
And that's why we thought it would be important to talk about this today, because like any new relationship, it's the first few months that are going to be the make or break, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So if you've gone to all that effort of finding someone, getting the right person for the job, can you really afford for it to go wrong when you've just invested all that time, money and effort into it? And that's where we're starting now.
Yeah, like you said, it really is about reinforcing their decision about taking the job and starting with you. So look, if we think about before they start, before that first day, we're going to call it pre-boarding, but it's all those things that you do to get ready before that very first day.
How far back does that go, that preparation?
Good point. Well, there's often a little window of time when you've made your decision about, when you're recruiting and you've made your decision, Yep, I'm going to hire that person. There's often a little bit of notice period or a little bit of time before they can actually start on their first day. So I would be thinking about some key practical things in that time, what computer, desk, what other sort of equipment they're going to need. But there certainly are things that you'd start way back when you start recruiting.
So like what?
Well, I would be really open right from advertisement period and the job description and all of that when you're talking with candidates, when you're interviewing them, throughout the whole process, being very open with them about what it's like to work at your organisation and the role itself. Being really open about that throughout the entire process sets up a really good foundation for you, so the expectations of that new person are going to be met.
Yeah. So the important part there is being honest about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not setting them up with unrealistic expectations, because I remember reading a statistic years ago now, but people who decide to leave decide within the first month. And quite often that's because it hasn't turned out to be what they expected it to be.
Yeah, for a number of reasons, I'm sure. But also I'm thinking about culture. I'm sure you'd agree, Susan, that, the way that you treat people during a recruitment process and an onboarding process should be exactly the same as the culture that you have in your organisation.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about it from that perspective as well, treating people with those sorts of values that are important to you right back at that stage.
Definitely. How do you feel about people reviewing policies and procedures before they start, like on their time? I know some organisations do an online onboarding process where the successful candidate basically works their way through policies and procedures and signs off on them before they start. Have you used that with your clients, or what works, do you think?
Done both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I've even been an employee myself where I've sat there on my first day and read 20 policies.
Oh, my goodness.
It's not always.
And how much did you retain of those 20 policies?
True. It's not always the most fun part of onboarding, but absolutely necessary. Look, I think it's definitely a good thing to get it done if you can before the start date, so that it's out of the way, so to speak. And I say that respectfully. It does need the time it needs, but those sorts of things can be done in the person's own time when they can concentrate on it. The only thing in the back of my mind is what sort of questions might it raise for them?
Yes. Yeah.
And how would they raise those questions, and is there a timely way to do that?
So I guess it's about being letting them know that you're available to answer questions. It's important in that pre-boarding phase to welcome them to the organisation, let other people know what's happening with that role. Let them know about the new person coming on board.
Yeah. Even if it's just a simple email out to the rest of your team to say, I've filled this role and so is going to start, in a week or two, and so that they know that person's going to be coming on. But also congratulating and welcoming that new person even before their first day, can really start the relationship off in a great place.
And so you could also let your existing employees know why that person's coming, why you've selected that person, what specific skills they have that are going to benefit the organisation or, build them up a bit, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first day comes along, what happens then?
The first day's an important one, isn't it? Lots to learn, and I think it's a balancing act. You don't want to overwhelm the new person with information, but there's a lot they need to know.
But you don't want to leave them on their own either.
No, that's right. Look, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously a really warm welcome. So when you know they're coming in and that's their first day, you obviously want to be there on time.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And prepared and setting up what you need. Does their desk need to be ready or the computer? Is there someone they need to meet, and having a bit of an idea of how the day might go. It might include things like going around and meeting some other members of the team, or some more practical things like putting their information in the payroll system. I would recommend having paperwork ready too before the first day. There's nothing worse than being a little unorganised and the poor person not having their contract or their...
Doesn't create a very good impression either, does it, if you're not ready for them?
No. So you could even go ahead and create a pack of sorts, before
Very
someone
nice.
starts, of all the forms you need them to fill and all of that. So you're ready for the first day.
Sounds good.
Thinking about some questions that they might have or what the answers are to these questions, like, for example, who to go to or where to go to if you need to ask this question or find this piece of information out, or this is how we meet every day, or this is, those sorts of things. If you ask yourself those sorts of questions, it can be helpful to know what sort of information you need to give.
And the really important things is, where's the good coffee?
Absolutely.
I've got a question that's going to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you can handle it.
Sure.
So we know now that a lot of people have remote staff. What would you think would be a good onboarding practice for someone who's maybe going to work at least part of the time remotely? Would you still bring them into the office, or how would you go about doing that onboarding? Especially if you consider in some cases that the person might be working remotely all the time because they might be in another state or another country, another city. So how are we going to onboard that person?
That's a good question. Quite a problem, isn't it? Look, when you're working in a hybrid or if it is someone that's working fully remote, I think the key for me is treating them no differently. So what do I mean by that? Ideally, if you can bring this person in to the office or to head office, whatever it might be, to meet the team, I think that's really a great idea. It's not always achievable, like you said, if they're in a different state or whatnot. You can't always. But, face-to-face communication to develop that relationship, you kind of can't beat doing it that way if it's possible. If it's going to have to be done remotely, it takes a little bit more effort, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would think so.
So I think you need to think more about how you're going to communicate and how you're going to give that information, how quickly you're going to do all that as well, and, all those different things to provide the same level of information, the same level of connection. It's going to require people to be online potentially at certain times, and so it's a bit of scheduling as well, because you can't just bump into someone in the hall and go, oh, by the way, Susan started today. So it's all about building a relationship. And so if you can do that online, perfect. But it's somewhat a little trickier. It's going to take a lot more intention. But ultimately, that's the name of the game. I was going to offer another suggestion that I'm aware of is like a buddy system. So I've known of organisations that set up, a co-worker, someone that can be this person's buddy, and the buddy's role is to be that person that the new employee can go to for the odd question, even if it's just where's the coffee?
Yeah.
Or it might be something else. But, that person that they can go to that's not in a leadership role necessarily, just someone that they feel comfortable, maybe taking to lunch or on their first day, that sort of thing. And that person can be a really key relationship to help get that connection started with the organisation.
Sounds like a good idea.
Hi, Angela here. Are you looking to hire staff in your business but fitting it around your other work is tough? Have you struggled to find the right people before and it ends up feeling like more work than it's worth? My business, Total Workforce Services, can help you. From advertisement to offer, we can guide you through the entire process as if we were your HR manager, and you can benefit from our decades of experience to find not just anyone to fill your role, but someone that you'll love to work with. We offer flexible and affordable packages so you can choose the one that meets your needs and you pay a fixed fee. Let us take care of the time-consuming stuff and fast-track you straight to only the strongest candidates so you can spend your time growing your small business. To find out more, you can find my details over on the Work Wonders website, workwonderspodcast.com.au.
So we've got them through their first day and we haven't overwhelmed them. We've given them just the right amount of information. Any follow-up on that in the short term?
Yeah, in the first week, you'll probably be checking in with them daily, but over the first month, it might flesh out into more like every week.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. So that's really an opportunity for you to check that they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And, you're happy with what they're doing. Yeah. But also to get feedback from them if there's anything that they're missing out on, be it resources or training or, any sort of cultural issues. Anything else in that first month that springs to mind?
Well, if you are using that buddy system, they might even still be checking in with them over that time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe the odd coffee with them or just checking in the hallway and saying how you're going, that sort of thing. Maybe even setting goals of what you'd like to achieve over the probation.
Yeah, sure.
After 3 months' time, where would you like the person to be performing at?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That sort of thing. And like you said, absolutely identifying any problems so you can nip them in the bud.
Yeah.
So when you're doing those check-ins, each time you're doing that, you are developing more and more trust and developing that relationship with the new employee, which ultimately is just so important in the onboarding process. It's not necessarily about filling out a checklist. It's about developing trust and a relationship amongst your staff and yourself as the manager of that employee.
Yeah, that's a really good point because it's those relationships that keep people at work too quite often. And they're certainly something that make work more pleasant for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So on first day or pre-first day when we gave them the policies and we talked about not overwhelming, not wanting to overwhelm people. So if we assume that we've given them basic things that they need to know up front, then the first month can also be a time for adding on to that. So there might be other policies and procedures that they need to know that they don't necessarily have to know on the first day, right? So you can gradually build up that knowledge and also things like training, using the software and systems that you use and them building their skills in those areas. And, of course, there's one more important thing that you really would like them to have a good handle on in the first month, and that is the organisational strategy and goals. Like, where is the organisation headed? What are your values, purpose, all that sort of thing. Hopefully they've clocked into those earlier on. But just reinforcing that and helping them to feel part of the strategic vision and where you're headed.
Yeah, I agree with that, absolutely. And, if you can bring it through the recruitment process right up till onboarding and onwards, of course, then, it's a good thing.
So we've talked about pre-boarding, we've talked about the first week, the first month, and then the final step was, after those first 3 months, what happens then?
Well, at that stage, depending on how your duration of whatever you choose it to be, you'd be nearing the end of your probation period then. Some people choose 3, some people choose 6 months.
Yeah.
So at that stage, it'd be all about reviewing what you've found so far.
Yeah.
So, thinking about your goals that you set, has the person achieved that? How are they performing? Is there certain things that they need to be doing in their role for you to be able to say, yes, they're achieving what I need them to achieve? And, have you given them the resources or the training that they need, or is there more that they need to do, and those sorts of things? So for me, 3 months is that sort of marker of, where are we at?
Yeah.
Are they going to be the right person still for this role? And making a decision from there.
Yeah. And one thing I like to say to clients too is that having a new employee who you've employed because of their skills and their experience and all the rest of it, is a perfect time to get some feedback about your business and how it operates and your culture.
That's a great idea.
So, while they're still in that first 3 months, they've come in with fresh eyes. They're going to have seen and observed things that you may not even have known about or noticed because it's the way you've always done things. So tap into that and, really get as much information out of them as you can, because it'll definitely help improve your business. I hope we've convinced you that you can reduce your risk of having new staff walking out or causing you trouble with an effective onboarding process. Onboarding is not something to be left until the day your new recruit starts work. And what tends to happen if you don't have a proper onboarding process is you might have new recruits who haven't received clear guidelines. They've got insufficient training, they don't really understand the organisation, they might find their co-workers aren't as friendly or helpful as they expected, or they're not feeling recognised. They've turned up and basically just told to get to work. So there really does need to be an effective onboarding process. Are you planning to hire soon? What do you think you'll do differently?
You can find the show notes for today's episode on our website, and remember to check out our earlier episodes from season 1 with more relevant information about this stage of employment. We want to make onboarding staff easier for all businesses, so if you know anyone else who could benefit from today's information, please share the episode with them. Thanks for listening to the Work Wonders podcast. Hit the subscribe button now to never miss an episode. And if you've enjoyed today, we'd love you to tell your friends and leave us a review. What are you wondering about? Let us know over at our website, workwonderspodcast.com.au. See you in the next episode.